If you want a band 9 in IELTS listening, you need more than just good English. You need the right strategies. In this video, I'm going to share 9 tips which can help you to improve your IELTS listening band score, get more answers correct, and avoid common mistakes. Now, make sure you watch until the very end because you're going to find out what might happen if you don't check your grammar. So let's start with the first tip, which is understand the basics. So, before you can get a band 9 on the IELTS listening test, you need to understand how the test works. You need to know the format, the question types, and the timing. This is going to help to save you time on test day because you'll know exactly what to do and exactly what not to do. Now, when it comes to the listening test is 30 minutes in total. There are 4 parts. And there are 40 different questions that you need to answer. So for each part, you will get 10 questions. Now, in the paper-based version, you will get 10 minutes to transfer your answers. But please note, if you're doing the computer-delivered test, you will not get 10 minutes at the end to transfer your answers. And by the way, if you're serious about getting a band 7 or higher in the IELTS test, make sure you check out our complete IELTS preparation course because it's going to teach you how to get band 7 in every part. And not only that, but it's been created with the help of a former IELTS examiner, so you will learn the secrets that only examiners would know. The link is in the description. All right, let's continue with our lesson and talk about what actually happens in each part of the listening test. So let's talk about the first part. In the first part, there are normally 2 speakers, but there sometimes might be 3. And the topic in part 1 is an everyday common topic. So for example, something like booking a hotel. This is very basic. It's something that you might hear in day-to-day life. Part 2 has 1 speaker only. It is a monologue. The topic will also be an everyday common topic. So for example, it might be a tour of a park. Now, topic 3, you will get normally 2 speakers, but sometimes 3. And the topic changes in part 3. In part 3, you will get an academic topic. So for example, it might be something like 2 students discussing a historical event. Now, in part 4, you will get 1 speaker again. It will be a monologue. And the topic will also be an academic topic. And an example could be something like a lecture on birds. All right, here is tip 2. Focus on keywords, not every word. Most students try to listen to every word in the IELTS listening test, but this is not necessary. Some of the words that the speakers say won't help you answer the questions. And remember, the purpose for you is to listen so you can find the answers or get the correct answers. Apart from that, if you do try and understand everything, it might stress you out if you don't understand, and that could cause you to miss answers. And of course, you don't want that. So what should you do instead? Well, I recommend that you focus on the main idea and the keywords. But what is a keyword? What does that mean? Well, when I say keyword, I mean a word that has important meaning. It often tells you who, what, where, or when, and it helps you focus on the right part of the audio to get the answer. So now let's do some practice. You're going to see a multiple choice question and I want you to listen for the answer. It sounds pretty simple, but just try to focus on the keywords from the question. So here is the question. Choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. What is located next to the cafe? Is it A, gift shop, B, ticket booth, or C, bike rental? Well, let's listen to the audio, which will be me telling you about the Lakeside Visitor Centre. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Lakeside Visitor Centre. If you're coming by bus, you'll find the stop just outside the main gate. From there, follow the path past the fountain and you'll see the cafe on your right. It's a great place to relax before exploring. Now, right next to the cafe is the ticket booth. where you can buy entry passes or ask about guided tours. The gift shop, though, is a little bit further down near the exit. All right, so now you've listened to the audio. What is the correct answer? Well, I really hope you said B, ticket booth. So let's quickly have a look at what I said. So now you can see the script on the right-hand side of the screen. And the first half of what I said wasn't really important. It didn't help you answer the question because there was nothing about the cafe in that section. So if you focused on listening to every single word and trying to understand every single word, well, it wouldn't have helped you to get the answer right. However, if you look at the text in the green, that is where the answer is located, because you can see that I said cafe, and that is clearly one of the key words from the question, because you need to find out what is next to the cafe. So that was a very basic example, but I hope you can see now that it's very important to listen to the keywords rather than trying to understand and listen to every single little word. Now, what happens if you don't know the meaning of a word? Let's pretend you're listening to the audio and you don't know the meaning of a word. What should you do? Well, you should ask yourself one question. Will knowing the meaning help me get the answer right? If the answer is no, well, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about that word, just move on. However, if the answer is yes, well, you should guess the meaning. And a lot of the time you can do that by listening to the context and making a guess by listening to the context. All right, let's move on to tip number 3, which is understand all of the question types. Now, there are 6 main question types in the listening test, and each question requires a different strategy to answer it in the fastest and the most effective way possible. So let's pretend that you get some questions like this in the listening test. And let's pretend you've never seen them before and you don't know what to do. Well, you're going to have to waste time thinking about, what do I need to do here? How do I answer these questions? And the problem is, in the listening test, the answers can come very fast. They can come very quickly. And if you're not prepared, you're probably going to miss some of the answers. Now, if you do want to know a strategy for how to answer each of the different question types and how to get as many answers correct as possible, make sure you check out our self-study IELTS course, which is in the description below. Now, let's move on to tip number 4, which is try to predict answers. Even before the audio starts, when it comes to completion or fill in the blank questions, you can often guess what kind of word is missing. So for example, a number, a name, or a place. And if you do this, it's going to help you to know what you need to listen for. So let me show you what I mean. Now, let's pretend you get some instructions like this. Write one word only for each answer. And let's pretend your first question is this one. Well, it says, the museum is famous for its ancient... Well, we can guess what part of speech will go in the gap or the blank. So ancient is an adjective. So after an adjective, we normally have a noun. So we know that the answer for number 1 is probably a noun. So that's what we should be listening for. Let's look at number 2. The hotel offers something rooms with city views. Well, a room is a noun, and before a noun, we're probably going to have an adjective. So for number 2, we would need to listen for an adjective. Number 3, visitors must something before entering the laboratory. So we've got must. What normally comes after must? Would we use a noun? Must cat? No. Would we use an adjective? Must hot? No, probably not. So we need to have a verb after must. So for number 3, we would be listening for a verb. Number 4, the course is designed for students with a something level of English. Now, we've got the word a, And normally after a, we would have a noun. And we do have a noun because level is a noun. So now we know level is a noun. What comes before a noun? Well, it's similar to question number 2, so it's probably going to be an adjective. Let's look at one more example. The main topic of the lecture was the something of climate change. So we've got an article, again, we've got the, and we've talked about this before. After the, we normally have a noun. So if you do this, it's really going to help you to know what to listen for. Tip 5, listen for paraphrasing. One of the most important skills in the IELTS listening test is listening for paraphrasing. The words you hear in the audio often won't be exactly the same as the question. So you need to listen for the meaning, not just the exact words. But what does paraphrasing actually mean? Well, it means saying the same idea using different words. It's a way to say something in a new way without changing the meaning. And that's key there. You don't change the meaning. And you can often do this by using synonyms or rephrasing the sentence. So now let's have a look at some different ways to paraphrase. The first one, and the most common one, is by simply using synonyms. So if we look at this original sentence, it says class, and then it says very boring. The class was very boring. Well, we can change that by saying the lesson was extremely dull, because lesson and class have a similar meaning, and dull can mean boring. So same meaning, but just different words. The second way is by changing the structure. She couldn't come because she was sick. Okay, this is one sentence structure we could use to describe this situation. Alternatively, we could say something like this: because of her illness, she wasn't able to attend. Okay, so we've changed the sentence structure, and now we're using a complex sentence. And also note, we have changed sick to illness. So we have not only changed one of the words, but we have also changed the structure. Now, the third way is by changing the parts of speech. So the original sentence here is he gave a clear explanation. Well, we could paraphrase that by saying he explained it clearly. You can see that in the original sentence, we say explanation, that's a noun, but in the paraphrased version, we say explained, well, that's verb 2. In the original, we say clear. Well, clear is an adjective. However, in the paraphrased version, we say clearly. Clearly is an adverb. The next way is combining, so putting two sentences together. I missed the bus. I arrived late. Well, they are two separate sentences. A paraphrased version could look something like this: I arrived late because I missed the bus. So you can see that we've joined these two sentences together with a conjunction, because, and we've also swapped the sentences. So we've put arriving late at the start and missing the bus at the end. Now here is the next method, using the passive voice. They built the school in 1995. This is the active voice. Now, the paraphrased version is the school was built in 1995. So you can see here we've changed the grammar a little bit, and now we're using the passive voice. Now, please note, sometimes you might have a combination of these different methods to paraphrase. So maybe you might change the structure and use some synonyms. So they were just some very basic examples of how paraphrasing works, but please note that it's not going to be that easy in the real test. Now let's move on to tip number 6, which is watch out for distractors. A lot of students get questions wrong in the IELTS listening test because they choose the first answer they hear, which is often a distractor. So what is a distractor? Well, distractors are words or phrases in the audio that sound like the answer, but aren't. They are not correct. They are designed to confuse you or make you choose the wrong option if you're not listening carefully. Now, in our preparation course, we look at distractors a lot and we go through plenty of examples so you can see how they work and learn how to avoid them so you can get the highest band score possible. But for now, let's look at a quick example. So here is the question. Choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. The seminar will be held at the A, University Hall, B, Community Centre, or C, City Library. So again, I am going to be the speaker. So have a listen. 3, 2, 1. So originally we planned to hold the seminar in the University Hall like we did last year, but there were some scheduling issues. The library was our second choice, but it's closed for maintenance this week. Luckily, the community centre had a room available, and it's actually closer for most people. So we've gone ahead and booked that instead. It'll be at 3 p.m. as initially planned. So what was the correct answer? Was it A, B, or C? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Comment down below. Now let's move on to tip number 7, which is listen for 2 questions at the same time. In IELTS listening, the answers can come very fast, and sometimes you might miss an answer, and if you do miss an answer and you don't know it, well, then you might miss the next question as well. So to stop that happening, you need to focus on 2 questions at the same time. So let me show you what I mean. If you look at question 1, you can see that it's about a problem. And question 2, what is that about? Well, it's about what the 2 people found surprising about the models. So what you should do is listen for both of these 2 things at the same time, the problems and what David and Sarah found surprising. Because if you miss the first one, well, it doesn't matter because you are ready for the second one. So this is a very simple tip, but it can make a really big difference and help you to stop missing answers. So now let's move on to tip number 8, which is check your grammar. So if you don't check your grammar, it could really affect your final score. For example, you might lose half a band or even more. So what I mean is, if you don't check your grammar, you might write something that's wrong even though you understood the answer. That means you could lose marks for small grammar mistakes even when your idea was correct. What I mean is, even if you're really close, small mistakes like grammar or spelling problems can stop you from getting a higher score. Now, let me show you some examples of grammar mistakes that I have seen. So let's pretend that the question is, reason for choosing the city, low cost of. And the student writes apartment. Well, that is wrong. The correct answer would be apartments with an S. So the mistake there is the missing S. Now, the next one, the project was finally something after delays. Well, let's pretend the student writes complete. Well, that is wrong. The correct answer would be completed. There is a missing ED or just a D at the end. The next one, she applied for a something last year. So the wrong answer is positions. Why? Why is that wrong? Well, we've got a, and after a, we need a singular noun. So the correct answer would be position. So the mistake there is an extra S. So if you make 2 or 3 of these mistakes, it could reduce your band score by half a band, even though you knew the correct answer. So be very careful. All right, let's move on to tip number 9, which is read the instructions. Now, just like with not checking your grammar, I have seen students lose half a band or more because they didn't read the instructions. So let me show you what I mean. Let's pretend that the instruction says write 1 word only. Well, here are some correct answers. Library or eco-friendly. Now, library, well, that's pretty simple. That's 1 word. Now, when we have something like eco-friendly, which has a dash in the middle, that's fine. That is considered as 1 word for the listening test. If you wrote something like public library, well, that's wrong because it's clearly 2 words, public and library. Now, let's pretend The instructions say write one word only and or a number. And you write 30. That's correct. If you write 30 people, that's also correct because it's one word, people, and it's a number, 30. And if you just write people, that's fine as well because that is one word. However, if you write many people, that is incorrect because it's two words. The instructions say one word only and a number. So you can have one word and a number, but you cannot have two words. So they were 9 tips to improve your listening band score. If you want to know how to improve your reading band score, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching, take care, and all the best with your studies.